ただの若者だった。シーザーJoJo.
That's right!
Hello people, I'm the Anime Hero and I review anime so you can enjoy it. As some of you may know, I already reviewed the JoJo series detailing most of the content of the 8-part story. So if you haven't seen that, then there's a link below. Earlier I was asked my opinions on how I felt that the current Stardust Crusaders have finally reached the original OVAs. So at the request of Rorschach, I decided to express my thoughts. But before I get to the OVAs, let's talk about what we got from the anime thus far. Looking back at Phantom Blood, a lot of JoJo fans felt a bit concerned as the adaptation was very fast. The content of 5 volumes were squeezed into a 9-episode series, omitting a couple of lines and scenes from the manga. One easy example is the JoJo meme/quote where Jonathan says even Speedwagon is afraid, which is not in the anime. Regardless of its quick pace, it still managed to keep fans and newcomers entertained, and apparently earned a satisfying approval from the author Hirohiko Araki. Some of you may know of the Phantom Blood movie incident back in 2007, where the film received very negative reviews to the point where the movie was never released on home video. Sure, some clips managed to appear on YouTube, but that's all we got. So seeing how the anime is still going today, it's safe to assume that Araki likes this adaptation. Moving on to Battle Tendency, this sequel managed to retain a better pace compared to Phantom Blood due to having 17 episodes for itself. Even with the longer running time, Battle Tendency still made some changes, which the only scene that comes to mind is the removal of Joseph taking a peek at Lisa's cleavage. I'm certain there were some other panels that never made it to the anime, but the point is Battle Tendency's adaptation to TV was more successful than Phantom Blood, which left out some details such as Jonathan's childhood of being rescued by Danny. As for the current Stardust Crusaders, the adaptation is a great success. Right from the beginning of episode 1, you can tell the animation has reached a new level of visual candy. Candy! There's something about the designs that look more detailed, as the example of Hierophant Green and Silver Chariot clearly display. However, not just the designs look good, but the animation has now received better movement. One of the minor cons of parts 1 and 2 is some of the characters will move as they were part of a motion comic. One of the scenes that always grinds my gears is when Lisa uses her muffler on Wired Beck. To me, it just looks way too stiff when clothing should be light and elegant when being moved. If you think about it, most of JoJo consisted of still shots which were often zoomed out to make a pose more dramatic. This isn't a bad thing as the anime director Osamu Dezaki would utilize these shots quite often. The same can be said about the Berserk anime, which borrowed Dezaki's style of portraying key events in the story. In JoJo's case, the over-the-top dialogue and with the heavy usage of color is what distracted our eyes from seeing the lack of movement. I feel the most ongoing movement we saw were during 3 scenes, the first being Jonathan's Sunlight Yellow Overdrive, the second being Caesar's fight with Wham, and finally Cars punching his way out of lava. I don't know whether they got new animators or a budget increase, but the animation has learned to effectively use CGI to the point where some scenes make it difficult to notice. And of course, the obvious rapid fire punching, along with several pieces of animation, will make their production a staple name in anime. While they have done other anime before, none of them were as big as JoJo. In terms of adaptation, Stardust Crusaders has excelled expectations, but there's still room for improvement. It goes without saying that every single anime adaptation for any manga will either omit content or expand new material. For example, at the finale of part 2, we see what happens to our cast as opposed to mere lines of text in the manga. Crusaders, however, has really stretched out the story. Most of these expansions were great improvements, but it could also make certain events longer than they should. For example, most animes need 3 chapters of content to fill up an episode, and usually need 2 episodes to adapt a 6-chapter battle. But what happens if the fight is 2 chapters long or have an odd number such as being 4 or 5 in length? This usually calls for extra material such as in the Sun episode, which can make it feel slow. However, the staff behind JoJo has also attempted to take certain liberties in the series. Take Silver Chariot's ability of removing his armor to increase its speed, in which we've seen him perform twice. However, in the manga, he only does this once. Now, why have a useful ability that was only used once? Well, Araki's dumb that way. One of the problems of part 3 is the lack of thought put into much of the details and context of the storyline. I could express with what's wrong with part 3, but that's a topic for another day. What I'm trying to say is the staff are trying to make the most out of it, One of the best examples is Sherry's doppelganger, which gets stabbed by Polnareff and boosted his character to carry some grief. In the manga, that scene isn't there. The doppelganger ends up getting destroyed when Apple crashed into it. Changes such as this is what helps the story and develops his characters, especially when compared to Araki's inconsistent writing in Part 3. So this finally leads to my thoughts on the upcoming Egypt arc, since it will be covering the original OVA series of 1993. The thing is, most people disregard the OVAs as a crappy adaptation, as a lot of the content was never adapted, along with having a more serious tone in contrast to the ludicrous humor found in JoJo. In my opinion, the OVAs simply served as by the fans, for the fans. For example, the OVAs weren't planned to be 13 episodes long, as it was meant to only be 6 episodes adapting some of the final battles of the series. Since JoJo Part 4 was being published at the time, the OVAs simply serve as a gateway for people to jump to the manga, while catering to the fans of wanting to see the more established part of JoJo. With the usage of stands, JoJo's had left its signature mark in Shonen Jump, as it was and still is a unique concept, which would later inspire the authors of Shaman King and Yu-Gi-Oh! While the OVA was certainly an incomplete adaptation, it did leave a good impression on me. In comparison to its manga, the OVA took some liberties and made certain scenes better, much like today's anime. Differences included its suspenseful atmosphere, such as featured in Endo's fight, which the manga lacks. Seeing this version of JoJo is certainly a bit odd, as it has zero humor and the story plays more like a straightforward horror. Evidence of this are the fights, which the ones picked were the more intimidating enemies of the series, as opposed to the fodder we got every now and then. Other noticeable factors that play into the traditional horror setting is the music, as it feels very appropriate for almost any classic horror film of the 80s and 90s. Take a listen to this piece and tell me that it fits very well for the credits of a horror classic. Liberties taken with the OVA series, but these final episodes display excellent portrayal of scenes that will be challenging for the new anime to be. Sure, today we got the JoJo color schemes and superior animation, but people tend to forget that age is not the problem, it's talent and budget. The original 1993 OVA has really good animation, and not just for its time, it still looks good today. Most people just take a quick gander and say, this looks old, but tend to forget about something simple, which is movement. Remember of the earlier talk of the animation progression of parts 1, 2, and 3? Well, the same applies here. Despite its older appearance, the series moves smoothly and carries a cinematic experience. To me personally, the 1993 OVA is a challenge to surpass, which every production really needs to place a lot of effort in. I know for certain the Vanilla Ice fight will be better in the new anime, as the OVA's battle was way too short. But as for Endo's, Darby, and Dio's, I just feel the OVA left so much of an influence on me that I'll still prefer them. I welcome a new take on these fights, and hopefully they'll succeed the 90s version. So I'll end this video by stating, if you want to watch the OVAs, now's the time to go for it. Or you could just wait till the Crusaders comes back and you can compare the two side by side. Actually, I may be tempted to do an OVA analysis once the episodes debut, but until then, enjoy the 6 episodes, as the OVA got me into JoJo, and it didn't stop me from enjoying anything else from the franchise. A review of the OVAs might be made, or should I just wait and compare them with the anime episodes? What do you guys think? And if you have any questions about JoJo or other things, feel free to type it in the comments. I'm the Anime Hero and I review anime so you can enjoy it. And one of the videos that's in the works is the Berserk God Hand character profile.